Welcome. I am Maria Cosme, and this is Pain to Power, the show where we turn our struggles into our strengths. Brought to you in association with the iRent Network. If you haven't done it yet, please make sure you subscribe, leave a comment. And if you have a Roku device, make sure that you are streaming. You are connecting to the Roku device by going to download the iRant channel, and you will see all the stations for the iRant channel on there, including BGI TV, and we're 24/7. So thank you again for tuning in. And if you're watching us live or later, we have to recognize that today's show is happening in complicated and frightening times, while also on the eve of an auspicious day of Pain to Power. So in honor and recognition of where we are, I want to open up our evening with some words to guide and heal us in this community. When Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. asked, "How do we redeem the soul of America?" he wasn't asking a rhetorical question. He was naming a moral crisis. Redemption in his framing was never about image, reputation, or power. It was about truth, accountability, and repair. A soul can't be redeemed if it refuses to look at itself. A nation can't heal if it avoids responsibility for the harm it causes or allows systems to dehumanize people without consequence. To redeem the soul of America requires us to do what we so often resist, to tell the truth about who we've been, who we are, and who is being harmed in the process of maintaining comfort, control, and dominance. It asks us to move beyond symbolic gestures, holidays, quotes, speeches, and into moral courage. The courage to sit with discomfort, the courage to listen to those who are grieving, displaced, criminalized, or erased, the courage to say that law without humanity is not justice, and power without accountability is not leadership. Redemption, whether personal or collective, follows the same arc. It begins when denial ends, when we stop performing innocence and start practicing responsibility. When we acknowledge harm without defensiveness and choose transformation over preservation of ego. My guest's journey reminds us that redemption is not about being spared consequences. It's about what we do after we face them. So when we ask how America redeems its soul, we are also asking a quieter question, some more personal questions. How do we redeem ours? How do we unlearn the narratives that taught us some lives matter less? How do we stay human in systems that reward numbness? How do we choose truth when chaos makes it easier to look away? Tonight's conversation lives in that tension between the personal and the political, the inner work and the collective reckoning. Because healing in chaotic times doesn't mean disengaging from the world. It means becoming more rooted, more honest, and more intentional about the power we carry and how we use it. Redemption, Dr. King reminds us, is not passive. It is practiced. And today, before I welcome my guest, I want to share a piece of his story with you with this video.
4 bank robbers led the FBI, GBI, ATF, SWAT, and DEA task forces on a manhunt that resulted in a shootout in the woods.
I didn't think about going to prison.
Cobb County police say the suspects appear to be part of the so-called Morning Glory Gang.
My corporate friends, professional friends, social friends that didn't know this part of my life. The unveiling was happening. I was always thinking corporate. I was making a good salary at the time.
36-year-old Larry Barnhill was an executive of the Orange Bowl Committee in Miami.
I was playing a dangerous game. I had already made a deal with the devil at that time, with the Morning Glory gang. You're controlling those environments. Whether it be in a corporate gangster, whether it be a street gangster, hustler. Gangsters control whatever environment that they move in.
Now, for the first time, Larry Barnhill recounts the treacherous choices underscored by living a double life and the lessons learned on how to control, move, and dominate for good. Control, Move, Dominate is a cautionary true crime story, but it's also a testament to resilience and the transformative power of redemption.
All right. Thank you so much. My guest today is embodying this journey of redemption and leadership. Please welcome Larry Barnhill, the speaker, advocate, mentor who helps incarcerated individuals find second chances through meaningful career paths. Welcome, Larry.
Hey, thank you, Maria. I was just sitting here every time I watched that video, the trailer that was put together by some good people that's really supporting me in my life and helping me continue to tell this story while I'm on this journey. I just get chills, and I said, "Wow, this is really, really something," and I'm really humble to be part of this show tonight, and you give me an opportunity just to share a few words about it. I have to say, it is with the big game coming up. I'm in South Florida, and I ride around and I think about the Orange Bowl championship, national championship game. I ride by the stadium and I look and I said, you really been blessed just to have an opportunity to see the stadium again and some shape and form. So I am so excited about this.
That's a real full circle moment, right?
Yes, it is.
Wow.
A full circle. we've come full circle completely.
Well, I am honored and humbled that you are open to sharing your story and your journey with us, because this show really is about that. It's about our stories and understanding the paths that have gotten us to where we are. And a lot of times people don't know the background to that. So thank you for your openness to do that. Like, this is really a treat for us. And for those of you who are joining us, please make sure you like, you subscribe, you comment, and that you add your questions as we're talking tonight to, inquire what's going on with Larry. What would you like to know? So, Larry, as I invite my guests on, the show is called Pain to Power, and I always begin with asking people what their personal experience is of turning their pain into power, what that means for you.
Oh, that's a good one. I love it, and I've had a lot of pain. And what I would start with by answering that question by just mentioning that the pain that through my incarceration, the pain through my life's journeys along the way that led to my incarceration, and dealing with that pain, understanding and asking for someone that's bigger than you and more powerful than you to help you understand that there is some pain there, and you have to first identify what is in front of you, and then the pain that you went through in the past and what caused it, and then get all that and just gather it all up in one big ball and just work on the things that you can control, and then moving it into a position where you can control it. And that's what determines the power. That's what gives me that power to say that I understand some of the pains that I went through and the pains that I've caused individuals, family member, friends, business associates, people who didn't know that I was living a double life, and then understood that pain. And then you have to ask, how do you move it forward? And when you move it forward, I think that becomes the power that you receive. And then you just live in it, and you keep pushing that power to understanding that that pain is there and it remains there, but now you know how to overpower that pain, and that becomes my pain to power.
That's so much taking it back, right? You're taking back the
Yeah.
power in a different way through that understanding of pain. I appreciate how that really knowing it deeply, knowing yourself deeply, knowing how you've caused it, how it's impacted you, like all the layers.
Yes.
And I know that we're going to dig into this even more as we keep talking today. I wanted to kind of take us back though. Like, let's go back a little bit to the beginning. Not totally, but a little bit, right? When you think
Okay.
about like, I mean,
Yes.
but our stories start at so much before adulthood, right? Our stories
Hmm.
start in a place of just our upbringing, and I know you and I have talked about this idea of upbringing
Hmm.
definitely impacting us. But when you think about your early upbringing and even schooling, like what messages, spoken or unspoken, did you receive about who you needed to be in order to be successful?
Well, I came up from I was raised in a middle class family, uh, two parent home. We got two sisters that are twins, and an older brother, and we we were brought up religious. My grandmother. We had a very sound family, but like we were every you know inner city family. We had our struggles, but my mom and my dad, they were both disciplinarians, and uh, moving through my younger days was through Wilmington, Delaware. If you had mentioned, I grew up in the Jackson Street Boys Club in the West Side of Wilmington, and a lot of the individuals, we just learned everything about life at an early age at that boys club. And as anybody does, they pick their mentors, they pick their favorite people in the neighborhood, and you kind of follow them and move forward and try to stay on the right path. And a gentleman who was in my life, and he's still in my life, even when I went through my incarceration, was a guy by the name of Jeffrey Starkey. He was one of our what we call childhood neighborhood success stories before we even thought about
Mm,
other success stories, and there were other stories around Wilmington, Delaware. But I'm West Side grown, West Side. That's me. So we stayed in our lane in those days per se. So he was a guy who uh, navigated a lot of the young brothers in the boys club to move forward, and he was under the tutelage of a gentleman by the name of Calvin Perry. I don't think he was there with Earl Christie, but he worked with Earl Christie, and he was one that we looked up to, and he kept the youngins moving forward. And he went off to college, and he was into sports as I was into sports, and he was a person that really molded the community, and he did great things in the city of Wilmington. He stayed here basically all his life when he came back from college. But he was a person that helped mold me, and along with the Jackson Street
mm,
Boys Club, and of course my mom and my dad, with the discipline uh,
right.
things that they did, and they were we were, like I said, we were uh, a full family. We weren't a separate family where my dad and mom, they were together, and we've had our struggles, but I seen it. But their main thing was to make sure their kids go on and do better things in life with the hand that they were dealt. And in those days, it was not a great hand. My dad, he, you know, you know, I say when I talk about my father, people say, "Well, he, what did your dad do?" I say, "Well, my dad was a person who always found a way. I don't know all the ways. I was young, but he found a way to do the best he could, uh, but what he had, and his upbringing, coming from the South in Snow Hill, Maryland, and he did the best he could. But he always, I watched him, do what he could for his children, and sometimes it wasn't always right, but we always knew that he had our best interest in what was in front of him. And mom's the same thing. She went on, work night school, um, excuse me, and went to night school and to better herself in position to get better positions at the Hercules Research Center, where she worked her way up to a lab technician. And um, we just seen that. And then when I had an opportunity, uh, along with what I've learned from the boys club and my parents, that was embedded in me. And
Mm,
so that was my upbringing. And if I could go into some of the things that the challenges that I faced while moving out of the middle school, elementary school, middle school. I went to a school where busing had just took part in the I think this was 1977, 78.
Mhm.
We were one of the groups who were moving out to the schools in the suburbs, and I was attending a school in Glasgow High School, which is very different now, I must say, because coming back to
Mm.
Delaware, and
Mm.
I go out to the Glasgow Park, and I play a little tennis when the weather's warm, and I ride out there to work out and everything, and I just had these memories. Say, well, I go by the school. I said, this school does not look the same. But to get back on point to my story, I experienced a lot of things when it came to racism. I was actually stabbed at that high school. As in my book, I talk about that, being that individual that uh, was coming up to be a I wouldn't say a star athlete, but a well-off athlete for the high school level. And that changed my mindset of how things really happened, because we were actually secluded into, like, say, the West Side, and we had our Italian neighborhoods and our white Polish, I think it was, yeah, Polish neighborhoods, and we kind of stuck together. But when we went out to the busing and to be faced with that systemic racism at that time, that was my first awakening
Mm.
of how the system. But I didn't take it all in. You can say, because I'm young. I'm tell you, I didn't really understand it all at that point. But uh, as I got older, I knew. I said, "Wow, this has been going on even when you were in the, what we say, the belly of the beast, but you just didn't
Right.
know it, because your
Right.
your 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 mother and your dad and your aunts and your uncles, they keep you away from all this. They shelter you, because
Mm.
family back in those days,
Yeah.
you know we gonna take care of you, and we're not gonna let you get out there. You're not gonna come and mess with our children in our neighborhoods, and
No.
we need a lot of that even today. I see a lot of it, and I don't want to derail off that unless we go down those roads in the conversation later. But that's needs to be done today. Look, we need to come back
Mm.
home and support the family, understanding that the youth is uh, they need our help. Yes.
And I think, you know what, like, I appreciate, like, you gave such different layers and experiences of
Hmm.
upbringing, and I think this is what we talk about, and what you talk about is the idea that upbringing is more than just your family, right? It's everything, and so
Yes.
that contrast of family that's there, and community and mentors and everything that was showing you, like,
Hmm.
life is good and you got all these opportunities, and then that contrast of being in high school and getting the racism and that clear indication that everything doesn't work so well, right? And people are harmful, and there's systems that are trying to break you down, right? That's a
Hmm.
big contrast, but it sounds like still it left you in a place where there were some gaps of understanding. So you moved into and you moved on from there as a star athlete, yeah, that was certainly something that was budding as your power.
Yeah.
You then went away to college, and
Hmm.
life started to move you in different paths. Do you like tell me a little bit about just those opportunities of where you started to see some of this identity and belonging feeling shifting as you got older?
Oh, it's definitely when I became two-time state champion in the 100 and the 200 in the state of Delaware. I transferred from that school where the incident happened to our inner city school, which is Howard Career Center, uh, my freshman year in the middle year. And basketball, continued basketball. And that was, one of the things that I was doing. And we had a change in coaching uh, at the school at the time, and it led to me being released from the team after being anticipated as being one of those upcoming starters for varsity
Mm.
in the next year. And That was a challenge there, but I went on to join the track team uh, by a guy named coach by name, not a guy. He's my coach still. His name is Mr. Robert King, and Bob King used to, have the basketball players run against the track athletes in the wintertime in the hallways, and so he just saw something there. He said, "Oh, he's got a little speed. You can come out and run for the track team. Come out after basketball, stay in shape." Uh, and I was like, "Nah, coach, I'm a basketball player. I'm Larry Barnhill. I'm going to play basketball. I'm about to start, Everybody, I'm going to do this. I got this figured out." So when this incident happened, when the coach changed, I was cut. And it was a big, when I say cut from the team.
Right.
Yeah, it was a big, big time in my life. And it was so big that, I probably went to school, but didn't go to class for like 3 days. And I had this conversation, with a guy by the name of James Rose, who was I was in architecture and drafting class. And Jeffrey Starkey said, "Look, you got to get over that. And if I use my name in the third person, it's Hill. They call me Hill." They say Hill, and Little Hill. My brother was Big Hill, but I was Little Hill. They said, Little Hill, you got to get over this, man. You're in the architecture. You got your thing going here. So let's get back on point. And at the time, Coach King was asking me to join the team. So I did that, and my first race, I think I broke a record at Widener College in the 55 meters. And the news article, I can remember it like it was yesterday.
Wow.
Yes, it said "A Star is Born." And I was like, wow, okay. This is my first real news article in the Wilmington Journal newspaper. And I said, wow, we might be on to something. And in the book, I talk about it. I talk about the gentleman who helped me prior to that race. His name is Kevin Marshall, and him, a good friend, him, another gentleman, Mark White. They were already on the track team, but they started taking me in, and that track took off. Now that leads me to college. After being the state champion, I was recruited by schools all over the country. Now I'm getting my identity, as we talked about in the middle of this conversation. So I had to lead you into the little backstory and then bring it back to.
But that's important because I think, you were faced with adversity, but there seemed to be like, oh no, but you got this opportunity, so you didn't sit in it too long, which is important to your story, right?
Yeah. Yes, I didn't sit in it too long, but I tell you, it when I think about all of it and I tell it now, and when you become and talk about the realness of it, it helps me mold my conversations and talk to individuals who go through challenges. So, but going back to how my identity was starting to form at that time, I was that star athlete being recruited, getting letters to colleges, and I knew that my mom and dad, couldn't afford for me to go to a school like the University of Florida, but they would have afforded me to go to college. That was clear because I had an older brother who was finding a way to go to Grambling State University at the time, and they would have made their way, they found their way to see that I was going to college, but never to go to a school like University of Florida. I think I was recruited by Stanford, Cal Berkeley, Georgia, Tennessee, just the schools all over. But my identity started to come around. Now I said, "Oh, you are this star. You're not a basketball star, but you are a star." And my recruiting trip to the University of Florida, it just turned into an eye opener of who I was trying to become, and more than like just to say I could become another Jeff Starkey. I can go on and do some things, and people will see, we can go on to school and come back and represent our community. James Rhodes, who was another gentleman in that architecture class, he did the same thing. He went on to Ohio State, and of course some of our other buddies that went to HBCU schools. But more or less, we were all starting to grab that college thing.
Mm.
So, but my identity went south to University of Florida, and I started seeing how things are done at this level. People are living different. People are taking care of you different. um,
Mhm.
so that was my college identity. It started to roll right there, which led to me meeting some very very fine people who took to me at that college level. Um, Keith Tribble, who was a mentor from day one. He just took a liking to me on my recruiting trip. Um, he's definitely a person who's been by my side. He's definitely a person that I pain and I hurt. When I talk about that intro in the beginning,
Mm.
um, he's probably one of the people after my son, my mother, my father. He's probably one of the persons that it pains me, and
Mm.
he never knew this that I would go down the path that I went. But in any event, he helped shape me. He
Yeah.
shaped he shaped me into that young executive. Gave me opportunities at the University of Florida. He gave me the opportunities at to go on to be a executive at the Miami Arena. He molded me in those shapes, and even leading into the uh, Orange Bowl committee, and which I couldn't. That's one of the things that I deal with daily, but
Yeah.
we got to take that power, we got to move forward, and we got to keep doing what we doing.
Yeah.
But,
Well,
yes,
and
yes,
and I
ma'am.
think, I mean, absolutely right. But I think what you elevated and I heard is the story of success. Success comes with rewards, but it also comes with burden, right? A
Yes.
burden to meet everybody's expectations, to hold that, right? To be that
Yes,
next
yes.
Jeffrey is heavy. Like that's not a small thing you're putting on yourself. So I mean, in that,
Mhm.
as you put all this this pressure, but also like you're building your ego up, right? Like
Yes,
you feeling
yes.
yourself, right? You smelling
Mhm.
all of it. I
Yeah,
hear it. I hear it, but at
yeah,
the same
yeah.
time, that like then goes into this story of what leads you into the corporate world and
Uh-huh.
how things start to unravel, which I know is a big part of your story. So
Mhm.
how does that now lead into the way you approached when you started in the corporate world as you're doing the successes and you're carrying all this of the next Jeffrey, right?
Yes.
Um, what is that what was that journey like for you? And I do want to pause for a second because I see our chat is blowing up, and I want to make sure we honor all the folks coming in. You're bringing in you're bringing us in, right? Like, who
Yes.
is here joining us? I see the
Mhm.
fourth show you censored 514. Welcome. Thank you so much for joining us. I love it.
Uh,
And I see Jada Perry is here with us. Welcome,
yeah.
Jada. Yes, fire. This fire conversation is going to get even deeper and layered, I know, with Larry today. Thank you so much for joining us. Make sure that you like and you share a comment and you subscribe. It's Delbert. All right. Welcome, Delbert. I love it. All right. So what happens when you enter the corporate world with all of this, the burden, but also the ego? How does it all play out for you and things that
Mhm.
you experienced?
Well, I can stick with the word ego because what I've observed and what I've learned through my journey was the ego plays a part in athletes,
Mm.
athletes at all levels. Um, you know, Going to the University of Florida, having them park the plane in Philadelphia at the Penn Relays, and I'm on the high school bus on the way up to uh, the Penn Relays, and I'm looking. I say, "Wow, the University of Florida has their own plane." and you see the fighting gators, and all this is just fueling your ego, and then you,
Mm.
oh, I'm the man, I'm going to the University of Florida. So that the ego starts there. And then when you move out of walking across that stage, getting that degree, shaking the president's hand, and then you get a job at the athletic department, which I earned. I worked hard as an intern to receive that job, but you're still in that position where your ego drives your existence, uh,
Mm.
from just being taken care of, being, when I say taken care of, the finer things, from the different average student athlete that's going, excuse me, a student that's going to school versus the student athlete, where we were put into a dormitory called Jan Hall, where we were fed 3 meals a day, only all athletes. So that ego, that separation, if you can follow where I'm going here, we were different.
Mhm.
We were like, okay, we are Jan Hall. We're athletes, whether it was
We're up
football,
here.
yeah, we're up here. Uh, we're football, basketball, tennis, soccer, whatever it was at the time. We all stayed in this one dorm, but we were, what we say, segregated. We were segregated away from the regular student in college, and that builds your ego on that level. And then,
Mhm.
and now going back to me personally, getting that job after my athletic eligibility was complete, um, it just boosted it more because it was probably, matter of fact, it was only two administrators. Keith Tribble was one, and I was administrative assistant. They gave me a job there. So now you're talking only two black administrators in the 80s at the University of Florida.
Mm.
We had coaches that were, we had black coaches that were assistant coaches, but at that athletic administrative level, you had two. So now here we go with the ego. And I stay with that word ego because it's building.
It's
Now
a
you
driver, right?
Yeah,
That
it's a
that's the
driver. It's a
thing.
driver. You're doing your job. You're putting the work in. Um, we were using a word what we came up with, and we call it jigid. Is just get it done. We were in there. If any situation come up with any athletic program, we go in and we figure it out. And by us understanding athletes as being former athletes, working with that, it drives your ego. Um,
Mm.
and then that led to me moving down to the Miami arena. And there's another short story in between that, but that dealt with the school going through a trying time with the NCAA and investigation and drug enforcement investigation. But that led to me to actually go down to the Miami arena and start to build on next success as being the first, black event coordinator at the Miami arena with the first NBA team in this city of Miami, the Miami Heat. This is their first arena. So being in all those settings, being on those platforms, your ego starts to drive you.
Mm.
You're the man now, just like you were in track. You turned it around from being removed from the basketball team. Now you're the track star. Now you're the University of Florida. Uh, uh, I was a pretty good star, pretty good runner, made the NCAA's. Uh, very good relay runner, and you're actually moving from there into the athletic department, and then moving from there to a company called Leisure Management, which we managed the Miami Arena,
Mhm.
the first building for the um, Miami Heat franchise. So now you could imagine, here's this young executive dealing with NBA executives, dealing with David Stern, God rest his soul. He was the commissioner during my tenure there, of the NBA, and all the people there, and wherever it comes. That was just put me on another level mentally and ego wise. You know, I'm like, oh,
Mm.
I am the man. Oh, I never imagined this. And what drives that ego is you being that person that's saying, well, why me? Then I must be somebody.
Mm.
Because you know that there was people before you that were smarter than you. That is something that it's just that breakthrough that got you through. And Mr. Triller had a lot to do with it. But then again, what was his breakthrough? He got through, you know, it finally.
Mhm.
So, and
Mhm.
that builds an ego.
Mm. So I want to break this down because I'm curious, right? Like you're talking about
Mhm.
you and all the things but there's always an impact, right, on others. So I'm just wondering, like, who did that version of you benefit and who did it harm in your life? Like, what were you noticing about those things?
Say that again.
Who did that version of you, that part of you that stood out like that? Like, who was it benefiting and who was it harming?
Well, it was benefiting opportunity, young men and women of color to see that you can have this opportunity uh, to work at this level. Um, the hurting part happens when it got derailed. So it didn't get derailed until it was revealed. Well,
Mhm.
it was derailed mentally and personally, but the outside did not know that part of my life. So
Mm.
until it was revealed, so
Yeah.
that's when I would say it hurt um, individuals that I was being represented in the community. By
Yeah.
they see me in a different way, but the benefiting part of it was this young man can reach these heights, can get these opportunities to be what we call. I got my best friend and my lady. She tells me, we used to call you HNIC. No, excuse me, not that one. Give a blank a tie. You can fill in the rest. Give a and a tie. So they
Okay.
used to say, give a and a tie. So that's what she used to tell me. And people used to look at me like, okay, he is doing it. So it was inspiring to those that would like to have that opportunity
Mhm.
to work in that field of sports. Not everyone wants to work sports, but those who admired working in sports administration and so forth. So I think it was helping them. I think that I was having an opportunity to work at arenas across the country because leaving Miami, it moved me to New Orleans, then from New Orleans to Memphis,
Mhm.
and then Memphis back to Atlanta, Georgia, and then Georgia back to the Orange Bowl Committee. So having
Mhm.
being this young executive, touching these spaces and dealing with these organizations and corporations at that level, um, I think it was benefiting, young executives, Afro American executives at the time, and women.
That's big.
Yeah, and I look at it now, and I look back. Um, at that moment, I didn't think it was big. I just thought it was me.
Mm.
Oh, you doing what you do. You doing your thing, Larry. This is you. Uh, but then when
And you didn't see the impact the way that now you're looking back and seeing the impact?
I did not.
Mm. Mm.
I have to be real and be realistic in this conversation.
Yeah.
I did not see it. I seen it as, this is what I do.
Mhm.
And I'm gonna, be fair about it. Never cheated it. I never cheated it. Never cheated the work. Um, and I never will, even to the day of when I'm working. Honesty is the best policy toward the work. If you don't put the work in and you don't be honest about it, it will be revealed quick.
Yeah.
my
Yeah.
my yeah, yes, mine was revealed based on outside forces that I've joined, outside engagements in life.
Yeah.
But as long as I put the work in, that was
Yeah.
in front of me and honest, I've always succeeded. And I still talk that today. But
Well,
only thing today, go ahead, go ahead.
no. I mean, I want to hear what you have to say, but I'm wondering because that you talk about the shift, right? And I want to
Mhm,
definitely get to that shift in this conversation,
mhm,
in terms of what happened, because it sounds like almost, right, you're the golden boy. You're doing all the things. Everybody is coming to you. You're successful, and
yeah.
in the hard work, like it's not, you earned it. You worked hard. You worked hard in the
Mhm,
athletics. You worked hard in college. You worked hard in the business world, and everything is good. And your ego is high, but something
mhm,
shifts. What was
yes.
that
The
shift
sh the
for
the
you?
shift was facing, corporate systemic racism, and I wasn't ready for it. Meaning, I had opened 5 buildings for a company called Leisure Management, and, we were doing great. And at the top, they changed the president. And I was in Georgia at the time, opening up a new Gwinnett Civic and Culture Center. I mean, it was Gwinnett County was probably all woods and swamps out there, but we were building this great convention center out there, and they were going in a different direction with their management. But I just knew that I was in line for that next building to be the general manager because
Mhm.
I like I said, I put the work in. I moved from city to city at their beck and call. Oh, Larry, we got a new contract in New Orleans, or we got a new contract in Memphis. Uh, go stay in a hotel for 3 or 4 months before you get your housing situation straight. I did all this for them, and I did it in Georgia. And when we got the building up and running, there's a gentleman that was, once the restructuring came, I said, "Oh, I'm good. I'm good with the top executives." And they were bringing in restructuring and bringing in a gentleman that I hired in New Orleans.
Mhm.
And I knew this gentleman was new to the arena management business. He was a local guy, but he was good in the engineering operation area, what have you. And I started trying to process, okay, now how is he going to be my boss
Mm.
when I done opened up 3 or 4 buildings and now I'm moving in this direction? So what's going on here? Which I didn't understand it because you got this ego. Oh, I'm the man.
Mhm.
I done did the 1990 in NBA All Star game. I done worked on Super Bowls with the Super Bowl host committee. I've done it all. Um, I've worked on the Olympic Committee, working with the top execs, not just being a person in the room, being a person who can make decisions and help imply into those decisions.
Mhm.
And now I'm getting someone that's going to be my boss at a new building that we opened. Um,
Did you hire?
that that I hired, that triggered something.
Mm.
And I was incarcerated. I kept planning it over and planning it over. Like, Larry, is that when you really said, "Well, I'm gonna do whatever I gotta do for me," and that might not always be the best decision, but you got to do it. But you got to do the right thing for you. So when I made that decision in my mind, my mind started playing like, "Oh, they don't care about you. They don't. This is just systemic racism at the time, just like it was
Mhm.
when you got stabbed by the boy in middle school, and then
Mhm.
a little bit of both racism when you got cut from the basketball team. It was just bias. I could say with the basketball, it was more bias. Um,
But you're
but
seeing
that,
patterns.
yeah, you seen it, yeah. But I at that point, I think that's when it started to be like, okay, what is going on here? And once again, my friend and mentor, Keith Tribble, shows up as I start to derail. But now I'm already derailed, but he's saving me. Like, all right, come on to the Orange Bowl committee. But at that time, I'm all in now, living that double life because
So
of that decision. Go ahead.
tell me more about you start to derail. Like what's really happening in that moment that you go from this experience of knowing that you're being shut out, you're being broken, like you're
Mhm.
definitely experiencing systemic racism,
Yes.
and something inside you shifts. What is
Yeah.
that shift, and what does it lead you to start thinking about decisions you're now making?
Well, the decision I was making was by any means necessary. I have to survive because you're making a great salary at the time. I got a house, a home, cars, and I have my son. And you're like, wow, you- 3 months severance, and I think I was making about maybe in those days about 64 or 65,000 at the time before I went to the Orange Bowl committee. So this is in the early 90s, and as a young executive and living in Georgia, you're doing great. And you're like, okay, that's going to do probably, you're going to get kicked out in 2 months here, you know?
Mhm.
But then you still trying to maintain this lifestyle, this image that you've built, this ego that you're feeding. So that's what leads you to start doing things that uh, that's been around you, how they exist, but you're really not into that. You're not in it. That's not you. And I've had people tell me, man, what are you doing? That ain't you. But you're like, no, I got to get it. I got to make it. You know, um, these folks, I done did all this for them. Now, it's no more of that.
Right. Well,
That's
you
that's
went from
my
thriving to surviving. That's a very
right.
different shift, right?
Thriving to the side, surviving. And that works. That works. That understanding helps me when I talk to individuals in this space now. I know when they can get derailed. One little thing, you got to look at what's going on. It ain't always that they went out and cashed a bad check, or they went out and took a package from this guy, started selling, or decided, oh, look, I got to try my hand and rob. It is something. I don't care who it is. It is
Mm,
something that triggers that moment, as it triggered that moment with me. Now, everybody's story is different. But
mm,
I do know that when in this space that I'm in now, it gives me that understanding. It gives me that human approach to it, that real approach. Like, okay, we know you got a record. You committed. You went to jail. I went to jail. I was a college athlete. I was an executive. I went to jail for a long time and never had handcuffs on my hands until that time. Besides a speeding ticket, that I
mm.
didn't pay. Um, but I understand it. Something triggered. And I don't try to tell them what it is. You let them bring it out. So with me knowing there's something triggered, like you asked me, Larry, what triggered when you start derailing? Uh, it derailed then, and
Mm.
then it was just suppressed when I got to the Orange Bowl committee. When I say suppressed, meaning my dear friend, he came and said, "Look, you're back on top," but he never knew that I hit the bottom.
Mm.
So now I have these two things going on. So now you're in this lifestyle, don't know nothing about this lifestyle. And when I say lifestyle, if you're diving in there, that corporate side don't mean nothing. And so now you're getting pulled both ways, trying to figure out, but you're already in, and you're
Yeah.
in over here. So that's the thing that leads to that double life.
So you're
And then
living these 2 double
yeah,
lives.
and it
You know,
just grows, and then you try to do everything to keep the great side uh, as your image, That's what you want. But the bad side is like, hey, this is what we do. We live in this lane here. We just here, and you do this too because you with me. So that's the pull. So you can imagine.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, I was thinking about this idea of your like living this double life and it brought this thought to me and I'm curious to know your thoughts on it. W.B. Du Bois wrote the book The Souls of Black Folks and in it he talks about double consciousness, that cost of seeing yourself through your own eyes and through a society that constrains and devalues you. So when you think about your experience as a Black man in corporate America, and this decision to have these dual lives, do you see any connection between that idea of double consciousness?
Yes. Yes. Definitely a connection between double conscious because you're conscious. I can speak for me. My conscious weighed on me daily in my family life, meaning with my wife, uh, trying to conceive at the time, just dealing with that conscious of like, well, you need to address that, but you live in this. Oh, I don't want to live this part. I don't want to be this family guy. Uh, this is more fun. I'm over here. I'm being accepted more over here. No one's crossing me per se.
Mm.
No one's telling me that you're not the man, but over here, you've been, you know, you've been stabbed. You built up this everything for them and then they kicked you out. And then the incident with the Orange Bowl committee was strictly just a business and a operational decision, not understanding that things had moved, changed. So my conscience was playing tricks on me, and I gotta be honest with it. There are some factors that led to some of those decisions that you're indulging in. You're indulging in that other side. Like I said, you're dealing with women. You're dealing with the drugs, hanging out. I thought, yeah, well, if I get high a little bit, I'm not an abuser. I'm not a person who never didn't make it to work. I was always like, you didn't think it, but your conscience is telling you that, but you're being affected. You're being affected by it. So
So
the
you're
conscious,
convincing yourself though that
hmm
nothing is going on that's not supposed to be going on.
exactly, and that's where that conscious comes in, and they call that double conscious, and you can't have a
Yeah.
double conscious. Some people do, and some people manage it well, but I did it. I managed it, but if you want to call it managing it, but um, that's definitely true what you said about that conscience.
So when did you realize that you were carrying that real split? Like when did it come to head for you and you're like, this is I can't be doing this.
Probably 6 months before I was incarcerated. You know, I would give it a year. I
Mm.
was and this may sound a little off base or crazy. Um, I used to, go on the other side of the house and just pray and like, God, how do you get me out of this? You know, um, my wife thinks that I'm this successful businessman, which I had businesses going, but we weren't making that kind of money. We were doing okay when the business was just launching, and and having enough money. I was just like, this has got to end because you're getting it, but the other side is feeding. So I used to ask God, how do I get out of it? Help me. I don't want my wife to, keep thinking that I'm this great guy and I'm, you know, not cheating on her and all the things because I was never ever, I mean, never been accused of it, but not to say that she didn't know, but never was confronted with that. And I used to ask him a way out. And in 2000 in those woods. And when I got thrown in back of that, after the dog chase, they let the dogs and the shooting and all that, I was like, thank you. I started,
Mm.
I actually said, thank you. Now I just got to get through it because I know I'm going to prison. I know I'm going to prison, but I sat in that car, and they moved me from a car into a black SUV, and I was like, wow. And I'm hearing all the shooting through the um, radio channels. I think two of us had been caught, but three of us, and then one was still out there. But it was just, it was something. As I, but when I was going through it in the moment, I didn't think that. I was always still thinking escape, escape, and then still live, that double life. But you were thinking escape. But when I realized, I said, about a year before that, I was asking God to,
Mm.
how do you get me out of this? And
Mm.
he showed me in those woods. This is how I'm gonna get you out of it. You're going to
Wow.
jail. You're going to jail. You didn't get you got shot at. You got shot. You got your limbs. You didn't get shot in the head with four of the top, agencies, in the state of Georgia, GVI, ATF, Gwinnett County, Lawrenceville County. I mean, you got all those people out there in the woods shooting at you. You're running, and you don't get shot in the head. And the one thing that when I was in my cell and I'm sitting, I'm like, God, you really showed me that you're gonna allow me to play basketball in here, work out, teach guys, coach, be able to teach, the GED program. So that was his way of that was it. When I realized, I said,
Mm.
well, you were saved because and I hear the stories coming in there,
Hmm.
people who done the same thing and say, yeah, my buddy got killed, my buddy got shot, he's in a wheelchair, all the stories. So I just think that, when the year, as we mentioned about this in early, I just think that year or so when I started praying, how do I get out of this? How do I stop hurting people? You
Mm.
know, you know,
But it's amazing how the universe works, right? How the higher power saves us in ways we don't expect. And I mean it's heavy. It's a lot. That's a lot,
yes,
right?
yes.
Um, but it sounds like as you get to prison now, right? You're in a different space. The power is gone. The ego is has been shattered to some extent, right? What
Mhm.
did you start to see and understand in that stillness of that space where everything else, this double life no longer existed, everything's exposed? What are you starting to see and understand about yourself and about your choices?
Well, I understood that I made a bad choice. I understood that. I understood that now you're no longer this corporate executive. You're just like anybody else with a number. And I knew that I would channel myself into being a leader amongst
Mm.
men that I knew never had the opportunity that I had, not even a quarter of the opportunity I had. I said, you have to find a way to lead in here, Larry. That's the only way you're going to make it. You can't find a way to fit in because you never fit into that type of lifestyle. You're going to be exposed right away. So, I started leading with being different. You know,
Mm.
they just call me
Mhm.
out. Hey man, college boy. Hey college boy. Hey college boy. You know,
Yeah,
man.
nicknames
Wait,
everywhere.
yeah. Nicknames everywhere. Man, what you doing here, man? What you? Oh no, no, you didn't do that. Yes, I did.
Mm.
Yes, I did. And
Mm.
then you find a way to start connecting, and then you get a few of them to understand their stories, and you lead. And my leading was through I ain't giving up. That was my lead. No matter what about prison, what about whatever, I am not giving up. God's on my side, and I'm not partaking in all the prison things that happen. I'm going to lead men away from those things so they can have an opportunity for a better life, a better choice. And you'd be surprised when people talk about prison, when you look a man in the eye who has a life sentence, and you look 360 of those gentlemen in the eye, you don't see them every day. And then they tell you, Larry, listen, you got a number. You're going home. This is the things that you're going to do. And whether you talk to me ever again, they're going to give you, some 5 or 6 things. And you just latch on to that. God was telling me, latch on to that, because that's real. He's never going home. And he's telling you, you have a number, no matter if it's 20 years, no matter if it's 25 years, no matter what it is, you're going to go home if God wakes you up every day. So that's the first thing that I knew. That's the first thing I knew. God's going to wake me up. I'm going to stay away from those things. The day is going to happen, and you can't stop time. And, I did the time and didn't let time do me. And that was through the advice of some, what we call lifers, where they got a letter, and when you have a number, and some numbers are, 50, 60, 70 years. It's like a life sentence, which I think is absurd to give somebody that kind of number. I think that's the mental challenge. But I attached onto that as being a leader. And then once you do that, you lead amongst men inside of a confined space, then that will start giving me what you mentioned about that earlier on, that power. Getting that power. Okay, then you start becoming Moneyball, playing basketball. They want you on your team. Now you start, just being that guy who understands that other side that they never even cared about. But you can get out and work for them. No, you're not going to be the CEO. I don't lie to them. No, you're not going to be this, but you can be your own CEO if you learn all of the practices to run a business, because they all have that entrepreneur mindset. Most of them did. So, and which we knew what that is, being a, street pharmacist, whatever you want to call it, drug dealer. I don't care what name you put on it.
Right.
We just know.
Entrepreneurial, right?
Right. You just got to be real. You got some talents, right?
Right.
You got some talents. So I started tapping into that and leading, and that was my power. Teaching class, getting the material, started filling, and then they asked me to come in and teach GED every institution I went to. Well, I was moved around, doing 26 years in prison. They move you around, and
but 26 years to be able to maintain that mindset.
22. And I did 22 to the with good time. And I maintained it every day. Every day I knew I was getting up, going to work, and just led with that. The guy said, "Why, Barnhill, Moneyball, you going to work every day, man. You good, aren't you?" Man, look, I don't want to sit out here and talk about and watch TV. And, I don't gamble. I don't do drugs. I don't indulge in other activities. So, yeah, I'm going to over here and work, and I'm going to talk to the officer whether he want to talk to me or not about the outside world. And and I laugh about this because I found myself where the officers would call me up there. We sit up there and talk about stuff in the world. I'm learning. I'm confined. I'm learning. So now I'm using my power there to, just talk to me. What's going on out there? He said, Barnhill, you're going to be all right. You just got to keep doing what you're doing. But I changed that power to that. I mean, I changed and made it through. And I did it like that day for day. That is
huge. for that
They didn't cut
many
it short.
days, for that many years, and
Mm,
I mean, and it sounds like there was a big shift even in the way that you found power in empowering others
yes.
and
Mm,
in humanity and in seeing, like
mhm,
that's been big, and so all of that and that experience then has brought you obviously to your story, to your book, but also to the work
mhm,
that you do with the Wilmington Alliance now
yes.
in centering that humanity and giving second chances and sustaining support. Tell me a little bit about what you're doing now and how you're taking all these lessons of life and leading in these spaces with the Wilmington Alliance.
Oh, it's just been a great journey from the time that I came home, with people invested in me. I started with um, Delaware Health and Social Services, working with them. Let me dive that back. I started with Parks and Recreation with a blower, blowing the leaves off, the street, and I wanted that job because I wanted to see the world. Like, oh,
Mhm.
well, you doing the leaf blower? You're educated, you got a degree, and I went to a couple of job fairs. I said, nah, let me do this because I wanted to see how things were moving. And then once that happened, a few colleagues that knew of me, and like I say, Starkey was in Delaware, Ray Rhodes, Steve Washington, a few other people. They said, look, Larry, we got to get you a job. And there's a gentleman that was at DHSS who got me a job through my cousin. I gave him my resume, Swan, Leonard Mason, and the things started connecting. So I was there as a case manager. Then I worked for Saad Solomon at Piece by Piece as a director of operations, and it myself, my old self started to come out on that corporate side. Like, this is who you really are. And then I had an opportunity to join the Second Chance Initiative with the Wilmington Alliance, and it's a young lady, and she's phenomenal. She's well known down in Wilmington, Delaware, and she was a former bank executive. And can you believe that? And she
Mm.
hired she hired me. Her name is Renata Kavocic, and she's um, a very strong woman, and she has been probably one of my biggest supporters behind a guy by the name of uh, West Southall, uh, working in that space along with the community leaders. She's been the one, and she's given me an opportunity to work with the justice impacted individuals, uh, with our expungement clinics, understanding what they need, building out employment pipelines for better opportunities for individuals to work with corporations with a background, so they can have a lateral career movement instead of just going in getting a job. She has allowed me to work in that space, and I'll be frank. Sometimes we didn't know what we was doing. She's like, Larry, what, we got to figure it out.
Mhm.
I
Mm.
trust you. I believe in you, and I've never looked for another job since I've been with her. Um, doesn't mean that that job is secure, but I feel with her, she's been so honest and given us that opportunity to work together, and with three pillars of work that she deals with empowering our community. She is when I say she's a stickler, and she's a Polish, you know, woman, and I think that a lot of times when she goes in those community settings, she's not appreciated for the work that she puts into it. So I try to lead with that. I bring that power to it. Anything that I
Mm.
know that's going to help those individuals, knowing what they do, I deal with that. And the Wilmington Alliance, she's giving me that space, along with other colleagues in the community, creative placemaking, entrepreneurship, and small business. Just working beside these individuals, and you know helping our community, not just justice impacted, helping
Right.
our community that's challenged. And my work is to understand that the needs to sustain the job. And I told Renata at one meeting, we were just banging heads up. What do we need to do to sustain? I said, and I told the group, and it's a table of community-based organizations that nonprofits that do it all. I said, everybody can get a job, and when you come out of prison, that's the first thing your probation officer is going to tell you, to get a job.
Yeah.
But are you getting that job because of your probation officer? Are you getting that job because you want a better life for you and your family?
Mm.
And they started to hear me, especially Renata. And it was another director, and she moved on, but she brought me in. Her name was Dr. Hara, right? And they start to hear, well, what do we got to do, Larry, to sustain? I said, you have to get a person out of survival mode.
Mm.
When a
Mhm.
person comes home who doesn't have that support, that survival mode is, number one, I got to get a job because I don't want this probation officer to send me back to prison. So you get any kind of job. So then now you have the corporations taking advantage of that. I'm going to hire this person because I know they're going to be here for 3 or 4 or 5 months, and then I'm going to hire someone else. So now you have that retention thing just going out the door. It's not even in existence. But when you're talking about retention and you're talking about sustainability for an individual to move their life forward, that is far different from getting a job just because of that probation officer. We're gonna, as she tells us in meetings, we're gonna kill 2 birds with 1 skull. That's what Renata used to say, tell us. I said, I'm gonna kill 2 birds with 1 stone. She said, we don't kill birds in here, Larry. We don't kill them with a stone. We don't do that. I said, okay, I gotta remember that one, Renata. But anyway, my approach with the Women's Alliance and helping individuals, like I'm gonna take care of 2 birds with 1 skull, and I'm gonna say excuse me. I'm gonna tell them this: you're gonna take care of that job requirement for probation because I know about it. I'm formerly incarcerated,
Right, right.
but you're gonna get this job that once you go through it, you're in this corporation. Ain't nothing that probation officer or Larry Barnhill or anyone can tell you to make you feel better if that's the career path that you want to go in. If you want to be in the health industry, start here. We have a pipeline to get you in. If you want to be into construction, start here. We have a pipeline with a large employer in the state of Delaware. And what the Women's Alliance does, along in collaborations with other CBOs, we look for organizations that do that, and we build out these pipelines. So my role as an employee navigator, I think that's more useful in navigating an individual, whether it's 3 or 4 of them. Of course, we all got metrics, we all got numbers, we got deliverables that's got to happen.
Right.
And especially in this trying time with this, environment that we're in, our community has to pull together and resource together. And sometimes that resource is just knowing. All right. It's sometimes not the money, because, but we know the money has to drive it, the funding has to drive it. But my thing is, if the Women's Alliance just continue to allow us and allow me to do the things that I do, it's gonna, God's got his hand on it. It's gonna show his work.
Well, and what you're doing is sustaining those opportunities, and it sounds like there's work on both ends, working both with the formerly incarcerated and the people who are going back into the workforce, as well as the actual corporations and the organizations that they're working in, which that collaboration is so important for sustainability. And I hear like there's mindset shifts, there's recognizing the humanity on both ends of what that experience is. There's recognizing some of the biases and beliefs that are present, right? So there's so much that goes into this. And it's such important work, and it definitely shows how your whole arc of your experience and this journey that you've been on, the book that you've written, the documentary that's coming soon, right?
Mhm.
And thank you so much. I know that we've gone like 15 minutes over our time. I appreciate
Wow.
you being here with
Well,
me.
you
This
you
was a
you
great
you had me talking, you just
conversation.
had me in it. I was
No,
in the
and
moment.
there was great things said, like, I think it was a great you shared so much, but before we go, I do have one last question, and before I ask that, I do wanna ask, like, where do people find you? How do they connect with you? What are the things
Okay.
coming up? Just, this is your space to plug it all.
Okay. Well, definitely you can go on www.larrybarnhill.com, and you can go on my website there, and that will navigate you all the way through all of our Facebook and social media accounts, Instagram, and under Control Move Dominant. But the space to land is www.larrybarnhill.com. So
Excellent, and do they follow you on Instagram, Facebook,
yes, on Instagram. Well,
LinkedIn?
Facebook, you can find me. You can follow me on LinkedIn. The same as Larry Barnhill. Facebook, Larry Barnhill. Then on Instagram is Moneyball 305 at 305. Yes.
And I now learned
Yeah.
where that name came from
Well,
today, so
Moneyball
thank
came from prison. Yeah.
Moneyball, right, I love it.
As
I
basketball, though.
I
It was basketball. I used to hit the last
I
shot.
know, but I was gonna ask, and I was like, "Ah, the story came out in the conversation, which
Uh,
is perfect." So,
yeah.
I mean, yes, please go follow him. All the links to the website and the information is below here on YouTube, so make sure that you check it out. Go and follow him. Go get the book for certain. And before we leave, a
Right.
lot of what you talked about was just being a man, holding the things that you do as a man, and how to deal with adversity when it comes. So, if you think about like a real toolbox for adversity right now that you could suggest for men who are particularly going through any of these double lives or just living in these double consciousness of trying to be in survival and thriving, what is your advice for those moments of adversity, for how to prepare for those things? What would you say to our audience?
What I would say to any man or woman who's going through adversity or living uh, a challenge life, whether it brings that double life or double decision making or double conscience, I would say first things you have to believe that there is a higher power than you that can fix it. Uh, and the way you get to that, sometimes you just got to stay still.
Mm.
Just be still.
Mm.
Be still at the moment. And when I say be still, don't it doesn't mean that you don't do your everyday life, uh, things that you have to do when you wake up or throughout the day, but be still with the outside noise and then funnel it in, trust in that higher power, and the answer it'll come to you.
Mm.
Because I faced adversity, and I can tell your audience this. Uh, while I was incarcerated, it wasn't always great, and I just stood still and said, "What's the answer? What's the direction?" And I found it. But if I'd have done that in the beginning and I knew how, I probably wouldn't have went through incarceration. And
Mm.
I didn't know how to do it as a young man with the ego, with I can fix it all. I had to believe in that there was someone else that controls all this, not you, because you of your degrees and of your athletic successes. So one toolbox that I can use, be still and trust God. You have to,
That's
and that higher power. Yeah.
excellent advice. Thank you so
Mm,
much. So, healing, as we say here, is a choice. Being still and listening to yourself is one of the things that helps you to
mhm.
recognize what your choices are in healing. But it's not a solo act. So, none of us unlearn what shaped us without support, without reflection, without intention. And that's what Larry here has lifted up, as well as this conversation. Please make sure that you are following, that you share this episode with anyone you think would love to hear, that's going to benefit, that just is in a space where they need these tools. They need to understand Larry's stories. If you have not done it so yet, click the like button, subscribe, hit the bell. Make sure you leave a comment if you're watching our rebroadcast. Follow us for every episode of Pain to Power on Sundays at 8 p.m. with dynamic guests like Larry. Make sure you're following Larry and me. And in light of so much of what was said today, I also still have been offering my course, Empowerment Unlocked. I don't know, Larry, if I've told you about this course. I think I've sent you some information.
Oh, yes,
It
yes, I
is
have that information
all
on it. Yes,
about
yes, great.
all about that sitting still, recognizing our patterns, being proactive in identifying what are some of the things that hold us back, some of the things that challenge us in those moments of adversity, and how do we gain the tools to move through them. So please come and join me in my course, Empowerment Unlocked. It starts this week on Thursday. And it is $49 for 5 guided weeks. And make sure that you're following me, following Larry, and coming and tuning in to Pain to Power every week at 8 p.m. on Sundays. Thank you so much. Thank you, Larry, again. Thank
Okay,
you to
thank
my
you, Myra.
producer.
Mhm.
And a shout out to your documentary producer, Victorious, who is going to
Yes.
be bringing the story of Larry into film very soon. So
Mhm.
thank you so much. And have a great night, everyone.
All right, good night.